All right, Breach. So let's get down to it. We kind of teased it a little bit earlier, but let's go through the NFL history, starting from 1970. Let's go with the merger because, I don't want to go into NFL championships and things like that. Let's talk about Super Bowls and let's try to find the 5 best dynasties of all time. We can start with 5 and work our way up, or go work from 1, work our way down, whatever you want to do. And here's just a few that we can kind of pick from. It's the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty, if that's what we want to call it. Let's presume maybe that they win here, 2019 to the present. The New England Patriots, I think you and I are both in agreement that it's the whole totality, 01 to 18. I don't know if we splice those up into 2. I think that that's all one. You have the Cowboys of the 90s. We have the Bills of the 90s, which we talked about. The Commanders going from the 80s to the 90s. The 49ers of the 80s and 90s. Steelers of the 70s. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start at 5 or do you want to start at 1?
Let's start. My goodness. Let's start at 5. I guess we want to tease it. I think starting at 1 would make sense because I think 5 is where it gets dicier.
Right. It's a weird inverse.
Right. But let's do 5.
Sure. What do you think? I personally am putting the Kansas City Chiefs this current run at number 5, especially if they win. But let's put them, so we're not prisoners of the moment too much. I personally would put them at number 5, and that bests some of the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. Again, they didn't win a title, so I can't really, in good conscience, put them in front of the Chiefs, who, in my opinion, might win 3 in the span of 5 years. Puts them in front of the Dolphins, which obviously includes an undefeated team, but it just doesn't feel like they have the staying power, the legacy that I think Kansas City might over the next few years, over the next decade plus.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs. I think I was a little bit higher on them. I think I said I would probably put them in the top 3, but I am fine putting them at number 5 because I don't want to be accused of being a prisoner of the moment. That guy doesn't know anything about NFL history. Chiefs aren't top 3. He's so dumb, even though his team's the Bengals and they lost to the 49ers twice. I know all about dynasties. 49ers. You don't get my vote, San Francisco. No, I'm just kidding. Let's put them at 5. That works. I won't push back too hard on that one.
Okay. And then number 4, I would go with the 90s Cowboys. Like we're saying, you win 3 in a span of 4 years. You have Hall of Famers pretty much across the list. To me, that's where I would go. What about you?
So I would have put the Cowboys at 5 when I said I put the Chiefs in top 3. I think the Cowboys I would have put at 5 personally, but obviously this is only one spot up. If you had the Cowboys at 2, I would push back, but at number 4, I am good with that. It's just I think the crazy thing about the Cowboys is just the fact that they went from 1-15 in 1989 to a Super Bowl win in 1992. That just how quickly they were able to flip around the franchise. And then let's not forget their 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. The year they didn't win the Super Bowl, they made it to the NFC Championship game. So this was a team that came incredibly close to winning 4 straight Super Bowls. But then they got smoked by the 49ers that one NFC title game. They didn't make it. They're good at 4.
And then number 3, and I think this is where we might have the most disagreement, but I have the San Francisco 49ers from 85 to 90. And obviously, we talk about one of the greatest dynasties of all time. They're certainly in it. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Joe Montana, 4-0 in those Super Bowls. Iconic moments throughout that dynasty, like the catch. You go down the list. Because of the team I put at number 2, but I like them at number 3 here. But I could be swayed to go number 2 if you'd like.
Yeah, see, I look at the 49ers dynasty kind of like the Patriots, even though they had the quarterback switch from Joe Montana to Steve Young. I kind of lump it all together from 81 to 94 because you're talking about a team that made 9 NFC title game appearances in 14 years. I mean, that's a pretty ridiculous number. You win 5 Super Bowls in that span, which obviously is impressive. That's 1 Super Bowl every 3 years. And so in that sense, I do think I would probably put them at 2. I just think that you're talking about one of the best coaches of all time in Bill Walsh, one of the best quarterbacks of all time in Joe Montana, one of the best receiver of all time, and Jerry Rice and Ronnie. I mean, this is just all these superstars, and they were just good for so long. So I would probably put, and look, I'm the one guy who should be picking against the 49ers because they cost the Bengals 2 Lombardi trophies. But I think I have enough respect for them that I would put them at number 2.
Okay, and so they're going toe-to-toe with the number 2 pick that I had, which was the 70s Steelers. And so, you're talking about, and I think you could kind of go either way on this one. So I'm not going to fight you too hard. But you have, I mean, just a ton of Hall of Fame talent, Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, and the way that they were able to do it in terms of going up against elite competition, John Shula's Dolphins, the Landry Cowboys, the Madden Raiders. I just like the path. I like the history of that turned them into a blue chip organization in the NFL. So I kind of like where they stand and what their mark has been in NFL history and making the Steelers one of these storied franchises. But it's the same thing that you could say for San Francisco. That is the same thing. That run made them a blue blood in the NFL. So I'm good with either way. I think that we can go with number 2, San Francisco, and number 3, Pittsburgh. And then of course, number 1, I won't harp on it too much, but clearly it's New England. Starting from 01, going to 2018, it's very similar to what we were talking about with Kansas City. The inevitability that the Chiefs have now adopted, they took that from New England. It was a surprise when they were bounced from the divisional round. It was almost a custom that the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC was going through Foxborough in an AFC championship game. And more often than not, they were getting to a Super Bowl. And you have the greatest quarterback of all time. You have one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history over that stretch as the 2 pillars. To me, I don't think that there's anything that the NFL can match that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And the one thing I will say, just because we rank the Cowboys at 4, is that the Cowboys also arguably had a dynasty in the 70s.
Sure.
They went to 6 NFC title games in 9 years. They went to 5 Super Bowls in 9 years, but they lost 3 of those 5 Super Bowls. And so that's where you could be getting, if the Chiefs lose on Sunday and then get to another one and lose again, and now you've got a losing record in the Super Bowl, and that would change things.
Well, it's totally true. And kind of going back to what we were saying with New England, it's why that 2014 Super Bowl 49 against the Seattle Seahawks was so massive for that organization, because they were coming off 2 Super Bowl losses to the Giants. They hadn't won since 2004. They're drafting Jimmy Garoppolo. You're wondering, is this thing going to end? And what is 3-3 in the Super Bowl is compared to 4-2? It changes the argument immensely. So when you're talking about the New England Patriots and you're talking about those other dynasties, yeah, these wins and losses certainly can sway things. I mean, like we were saying earlier with the San Francisco 49ers, if they lose this game, they're now the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. And if they win this game, it's possible that they become this new dynasty. And for Kansas City, if they lose this game and they start to pile up a couple other losses, then sure, it changes things. But if they win this one, then they're off to the races as one of the greatest we've ever seen. So there's a lot of variance in all of these games. So it's just fascinating to see as we kind of rocket towards this Super Bowl and obviously look at these past ones, how a win here or there could change things.
So if they win, do you move them up to 4th on this list or keep them at 5?
I think I would move them up to 4. I'm trying not to be, too reactionary, but from what I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be, and I am projecting out a little bit, from what I think that he's going to be able to accomplish with Andy Reid and with the Kansas City Chiefs, I think we're going to be looking at them as a top 5, top 4, possibly even top 3 dynasty in the league.